Welcome to Mondays with Vish. Is this the 1 year anniversary of our first show, week
Yes, I think it
3?
is.
I think it
We
is.
yeah.
Okay. And unlike last year, the Niners are 2-0, and they had a terrific win. Their defense looks really good, and that's what we want to focus on today, the positives of the Niners being 2-0. But first, there's news, and we're going to touch on that first. How's school going, Vish?
It's pretty good. It's really busy. And I've noticed now that I've gone to school, a lot of people know this. I mean, I generally don't sleep a lot. I have a lot to do. I have a lot of things in my life, so I don't sleep a lot. But when you have the added benefit of having to go to school, now your lack of sleep kind of catches up with you because you're walking around a little more. So I feel like when I get on Twitter, I used to be real good about not having Twitter fingers. Or if I see something, I just keep scrolling, or I wouldn't respond, or I wouldn't say anything. But these days, when I get on Twitter, man, I just get on, and it's like I'm there for like 1 hour, and that 1 hour, I just start firing. So I need to get back into that more.
Yeah,
And
that's what this
stop.
is for. 49ers Twitter is right now like split like Montagues and the Capulets right now, Romeo and Juliet. So we gotta bring some common ground here, and we're gonna do that by really praising the hell out of the defense because it deserves it. But first, let's talk about this news. Kyle Shanahan spoke an hour ago, and you start with the injuries. JaMycal Hasty has a high ankle sprain, going to miss some time. Elijah Mitchell, shoulder injury day-to-day. Trey Sermon, concussion protocol. And that's on top of Raheem Mostert out for the season. Jeff Wilson Jr. out for a while. That's the top 5 guys. What's your initial reaction?
It sucks.
Yeah.
Because last season they went through this. It just sucks. It sucks for them. It sucks for the players because I think all 5 running backs, even Sermon, what we see in preseason, have all shown glimpses of possibly being able to have a big season if they were going to play. Like Raheem Mostert, we saw in his first 2 runs, and we saw the little he played in the 3rd preseason game, what his season could have been. Unfortunately, he has a season-ending injury. Elijah Mitchell has looked good. He looks like Matt Breida Jr., maybe a little less quickness and side-to-side ability, but a little more power than Matt Breida. JaMycal Hasty has looked explosive every time he's touched the ball. Trey Sermon, his 1 run looked good. It looked
real quick, I'm not exactly sure what the Niners are basing their hesitancy with Trey Sermon. Clearly it's practice, but he looks really good every time I've seen him play actual football. I'm just saying.
I think it has something to do with ball security.
Okay, fair enough.
I
can't dispute it.
He had a little bit of a fumbling issue maybe in practices. So I think it might be that. But then Hasty also shares that same concern. So maybe that's why Mitchell was the guy getting the bulk of the carries. But going back, I think it really sucks because we saw this happen to them last year. And this year we saw them actually make investments to try and prevent this. They came into camp, right, with 7 running backs, all who were capable of making their roster and contributing. When you look at Jeff Wilson, Jeff Wilson didn't make it to camp, but I'm talking about OTAs this offseason. Jeff Wilson, Wayne Gallman, Hasty, Mitchell, Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon. You look at 6 running backs, not 7, 6, excuse me, that were capable of making this roster and contributing. And here we are, week 2, and they had to cut Wayne Gallman. Jeff Wilson got hurt.
Who was the most durable one? Probably the least talented, but the most durable.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson, OTAs, he got hurt standing up. Raheem Mostert, unfortunately, 2 carries into the season, he's gone. JaMycal Hasty sprains his ankle. Elijah Mitchell yesterday battled it out after everybody else got hurt, but he's playing with a banged-up shoulder. And finally, Trey Sermon, 1 carry, and he has a violent, nasty concussion, and that entire watching Trey Sermon be on the ground and all of that was sad to see. That's the part of football that you don't like seeing because he was on the ground and he looked like somebody that was totally out of it. Hopefully he gets better from his concussion and all of that. So honestly, like I would like to sum this up in a different way, but I think the thing that sums it up is really that it just sucks for the Niners and it sucks for the players.
Well, let's look ahead. I mean, I think a lot of Niner fans were very optimistic that the Niners would beat the Packers coming up. Now, the Packers really look terrible week 1. We'll see what they look like tonight against the Lions, but the path to victory over the Packers is running them over like they have in the past. And it's just going to be hard to do that without those 5 guys. Now, maybe Elijah Mitchell will be fine. Maybe Sermon will be fine, and maybe they'll be able to do it. But as of right now, what is this, Monday? It's looking like, this is a really tough time to be down 5 running backs because the Packers are the easiest game of the next 3. The next 3 are a really tough stretch, and then you got a bye week where you can get healthy. Mm-hmm. It's a scary little gauntlet right here.
And another thing to add, right? If Mitchell's already banged up, the Packers game, the Packers are a little more of a finesse team. Physicality, I would say, has been one of their weaknesses. But Seattle has always been as physical as it gets, and their front seven has always been physical. And then Arizona has a very, very physical front seven. So I think those 2 things, if you go in with a banged up running back, I think it's scary. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? I think all of us agree for the most part that Kyle Shanahan can kind of make it work with a lot of different people at running back. But those lot of different people have to have a specific skill set and be able to at least be on the field and do that. They're down all those lot of different people right now. Like if it was just Mostert and they had the other 4, we would be still very optimistic about this run game. But now it's Mostert, it's Hasty, it's Sermon, it's Mitchell, and we're sitting here looking like, is he going to turn Trent Cannon or is it Trent Cannon? Is he going to have him?
Austin Walter, maybe. But it's Trenton. But real quick, there are some options. They have Kerryon Johnson on the practice squad. He was a hell of a running back before he hurt his knee.
Right.
And they brought in 3 guys for workouts today. TJ Yeldon, Duke Johnson, and who was the last one? Lamar Miller. All guys who have really had success in the NFL at times. Who would you like them to bring up to bring to the active roster if you could pick one of the 4?
So one of the 4, I like the idea of moving Kerryon Johnson as we speak. He was really talented coming out of Auburn.
He was.
Yeah, and I think there might be something. Maybe he might not be the same. He had explosion when he came out of Auburn. After that knee, he doesn't have that, but he might still have something. But I like the idea of Duke Johnson. I think Duke Johnson replaces Hasty. Right. I think the one thing Hasty has shown that separates him from the other backs is that he's clearly a notch up in the receiving game. I think even including Raheem Mostert, he is very good in the receiving game. And I think Duke Johnson can replace that. And then I prefer actually TJ Yeldon to Lamar Miller. I think Lamar Miller is mostly done. I think there's been a lot of wear and tear on his body. And I think he's also had a couple of serious injuries. And Lamar Miller was 4-4 all day when he came out of college. I don't think he's near that guy anymore. But I think TJ Yeldon doesn't have as much wear and tear. He's still a big, powerful runner. And I think he would bring an element of something the Niners lack that Sermon was supposed to bring, a more of a violent, patient runner rather than these super fast, upright, high collision runners like Mitchell.
Right. And I want to say, there's good news here. Running backs are always available, usually. And we just named 4 ones who are interesting. The best news is that the starting running back next week, I guarantee, will not be Jerick McKinnon. And that's good. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. Because every time the Niners hand the ball off to Jerick McKinnon last year, they did their opponent a favor. That guy had nothing left. I'm not saying Kerryon Johnson.
Hey, did you see him yesterday? He had a nice reception.
Did he really? I wrote him off too soon. Sorry, Jerick. All right, let's answer some questions. James says they could do a full Hard Knocks season in the 49ers training room. Also, this offense looks worse than it did with Nick Mullins in garbage time. We are going to do a full assessment of the Niners offense in a minute after we do the defense. So you anticipated our play on that one. You jumped the coverage. Bo No says, Grant and Vish, I appreciate your deep knowledge of the 49ers franchise, and I love watching your show. Thank you, Bo. Can both of you pick a defensive MVP from Sunday's game?
I can pick one.
Go ahead.
I thought he was the best football player on the field, and that's given how many players on that defense played well. I thought Fred Warner dominated.
Yeah, I would say so too. Now, Jaquiski Tartt's tackle was the most heroic play, but first and goal at the 1, that's still a tough spot they were in because of Josh Norman's penalty, and boom, tackle for loss 3. Yeah. That's I
thought,
Navarro Bowman or Patrick Willis would have done.
Right. I thought Tartt was unbelievable. I thought Ward was unbelievable. Bosa looked unbelievable. I thought Armstead had a strong game. I thought a lot of different guys had good games, but he, to me, was a cut above everybody. It felt like he was just like, our defense is not going to have the same type of performance we had last week. We're not going to let up. And, he ran down Jalen Hurts from the far hash all the way to the sideline. That was pretty impressive.
But I'm really, really impressed by his tackle in the backfield because that's like the last part of his game. That's the biggest difference between him and Bowman, for example. Bowman will be in the backfield all day. And I remember when I covered that team, you could put that defense at the 1 yard line, and a lot of teams would have trouble scoring. I mean, I remember in the playoffs, a young Cam Newton, who was arguably the best goal line back in the league at the time, and did they have like 7 chances at it? They had a lot of chances at it, and they couldn't get the ball across the line. That was pretty much the difference in that playoff.
That defense also, to me, was they had 3 guys who were pretty unmovable in their defensive line.
Yes.
The Sapawagas, the Glenn Dorseys were big, but then Ray McDonald was a big human being that was tough to move. And Justin Smith obviously was a beast. But I agree. And one thing that's always been maybe a little bit lacking in Warner's game is that hit power. You know, when he hits a guy, it's not a statement.
I feel like he has it now.
That second and goal tackle for a 3-yard loss was a statement hit. He knocked him straight back, and that was like,
I think that was first and goal. Am I wrong?
I thought first and goal was the incomplete pass to Ertz.
I don't know. Those 4 play calls were terrible. But we were not talking about
they were all bad,
We're not talking about the Eagles. They have a lot going for them. They're an interesting team, but they're definitely a year away or whatever.
They should have run Hurts once. Not a read option play, not get him on the edge. Just use his power. He's so big.
Not exactly sure what Nick Sirianni was doing. A lot of times when teams who are not in the same division, they just don't really know each other that well. They look like they should have been watching our show. Like they didn't do their homework, and they could have called me and I could have told them, but they didn't really know. Jonathan says, "Hi, how are you guys doing?" I'm doing great. How you doing, Vish?
I'm doing well, yeah.
It looks like Miami could use quarterback right now. What do you think we can get for Jimmy from the Dolphins? Do you feel like Kyle Shanahan is this is all an elaborate ploy to trade Jimmy Garoppolo before the deadline?
No.
It doesn't feel like that.
It doesn't feel like it at all. I think they feel like they're going full speed ahead with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's how it feels like more than anything. And in regards to Miami, I think Miami, especially at this point, he's the kind of player that they can't trade for because him and Tua are very similar, and you could make the argument right now that he's just better than Tua. And that would kill Tua's confidence because Brissett at least is the highly paid backup. This guy's a starter. He might just beat out Tua, and they're trying to build with Tua. And if they don't build with Tua and trade for him, that really puts them in a tough spot because they still have options in terms of assets to get a Deshaun Watson when that clears up or draft a quarterback very high.
Also, the 49ers are trying to build with Jimmy Garoppolo. You didn't know? You didn't hear? That's their guy. You didn't know? They love Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know why anyone would think differently. Merkin Avalos says, first, do you think Kittle invited Lance to Vegas as a setup? Kyle, this is what your fan base is doing. They're trying to figure out what you're thinking because they don't get it. Do you think Kittle invited Lance to Vegas as a setup? They seemed cool before the season started. Now, not so much. Do you think BA and TS, Brandon Ayuk and Trent Sherfield are part of the Lance package? So that's why. Trey Sermon are part of the Lance package, so that's why limited playing time. I don't know, but again, whatever their issues are with Trey Sermon and Brandon Ayuk in particular, I didn't see it. And I'm pretty hard on the 49ers play. I'm looking for players to criticize. Honestly, there's nothing makes me happier than criticizing a former first-round pick that's Brandon Ayuk or someone high like Trey Sermon. And I just got to say I'm always impressed with them. I think they're good players. So I think the Niners might be a little hard on them. And sure, if they're going to be scoring 30 points every game, then who am I to say Kyle's wrong? But last 6 quarters have been a little tough for them. Maybe they should just try things for the sake of trial and error. I don't know.
I think the loss of Ayuk is really showing. I think most people agree.
Yes.
Like, sure, Sherfield had a great camp. Sure, Mo Sanu is a wily veteran, but their offense is missing something outside of Deebo Samuel. It's missing an explosive element. It's missing someone that's winning consistently on the outside and stuff. And Ayuk is supposed to be that guy. And for whatever reason, I mean, I know people get real mad if you say he's in the doghouse. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know what he's in. I thought Kyle Shanahan made it an extra point to mention the one catch he had, saying it was a hell of a catch in his presser after the game to make it seem like everything's good and dandy.
It was a hell of a catch.
Everything's not good and dandy because we're talking about a guy that was able to scheme up when Richie James was the only available player that was basically on this roster the entire season and didn't have COVID. He was able to get him to have 9 catches and 183 yards receiving. Yeah. Look, the Packers defense is different from Philadelphia's defense. Different front, different scheme, all of those things. But all I'm saying is if he wants to get somebody the ball and get them involved in a game, he's capable of doing it. And some people say it's the hamstring injury. Something I thought of recently, last time somebody said this to me, is if you remember Debo and him missing time, Debo Samuel missed all of training camp last year with a foot injury. Debo Samuel then was hurt. He had a setback. He came back, and week 4, I think Philly was his first game, but he was in and out of the lineup. I think then after that, did they have their bye after week 4?
Think so.
And then they played the Rams.
Yeah.
Debo Samuel was a prominent part of that game plan.
Yes,
Whenever he played, even when he came back from the hamstring injury against the Patriots, the Washington play, the first thing they did was get Debo Samuel the ball. So I don't think missing time here is the issue, because when a Kittle missed time, when a Debo misses time, they find ways to get them the ball as soon as they come back. Why? Because they're the best offensive players on this team. And that's where,
they're down on
Ayuk.
Really well. Down on Ayuk. And I mean, they watch him every day in practice. I haven't seen him in weeks. I just again, when it was Pettis in 19, I saw it coming. It was obvious. This, like, I missed it. I just missed it. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
So
I didn't see it.
It's confusing to me because, like, sure, Sherfield can be playing really well, but if Brandon Ayuk is that guy and he looked like that guy last year, Trent Sherfield should not be challenging him for snaps because he missed time. Like, you don't challenge, like, even really good receivers. Like, tomorrow, do you think if Robert Woods pulls a hamstring, missed 2 weeks, the Rams are going to be having Van Jefferson split time with Robert Woods when he comes back?
No. And it's so weird which players have this status and which ones don't. Anyway, Marcus says, are we forgetting that Jimmy G is injury prone too? Do we think he can keep up hopelessly trying to turn himself into the next Mike Vick? Every time he sneaks, I'm glaring to see if he stands up. That's a good point. I mean, I don't think we're forgetting that. I don't think
he's a hell of.
Uh-oh. What'd you say?
No, what I was going to say was he's a hell of a quarterback sneaker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He gets real low, but I actually think he has a tell. If you notice, he has his left foot all the way back, ready to explode every time he's about to quarterback sneak. I don't know.
Brian, thank you. Yeah, we got to do advanced scouting. David Sir says, I'm honestly jealous of Lamar and Harbaugh's relationship in Baltimore. Do you think that's going to be possible with Kyle and Trey? That's an interesting thing to look at, the quarterback-coach relationship. I mean, with Lamar and Harbaugh, I don't know if it's genuine, but Harbaugh goes out of his way to make it look like they're very close. Jim did the same thing. McVay is that way with Stafford. I'm sure Walsh was that way with Montana outwardly.
I think the guy just has to be that good.
Yeah.
True. Like, I think Kyle trusted Matt Ryan to a fault in Atlanta. He put the ball in Matt Ryan's hands in the biggest situations. He didn't put it in his run game's hands. If you have a quarterback that you believe is that good, you're going to put the ball into his hands because you think he's your best chance at winning that game. And Lamar responded and was able to make that play for them. I mean, you brought up a couple other examples.
Let me say it this way. Do you think Kyle's ever going to get a quarterback that Kyle will take the blame for? Be like, look, that was on me. Don't
your cousin. He's taking the blame. Hey, he's taking the blame a lot more this offseason in his pressers.
Well, they haven't lost.
I got to be better.
But you're right. Yeah,
true.
Right. Yeah. But I hear you, David. Tehran says the play calling was less than stellar yesterday. We could not run the ball effectively because our passing game was non-existent past 10 yards. These are true statements. We're going to get to the offense soon. Stick with us. Promise. I'm J Rico 85 says, I don't understand why Kittle is so down on Lance. If Kittle would watch Lance's NDSU highlights, he would see that 90% of Trey's passing TDs were to tight ends. His tone would change. Again, we don't know if Kittle is down on Lance. It's just a there's an air of mystery over this team, and people are reading into it as they will.
Where does this stem from? Every time I come on your show, there's 4 donations asking about the Kittle-Lance relationship.
I mean, people watch the press conferences themselves, and it's pretty obvious that Kittle is like great best friends with Jimmy Garoppolo, and at most giving like a fraternal hazing to Trey Lance. Like, nothing against Trey, but he's a rookie, and that's the way it is. And we're a veteran team, and we don't need him. That's kind of the attitude I feel like people are picking up from him, right or wrong.
Okay,
right or wrong.
Interesting.
Right or wrong. Chris says, best guess on why do you think Shenny isn't putting in Lance? I think Shenny feels like not using him is an advantage. You maintain mystery. Maybe the Lance package is pretty small right now. And by not using it, you maintain the ability to use it down the line. I think he probably felt he could win without it. I have some objections to that, but essentially he was right. He didn't need it to win.
But
maybe there's that.
I think it's just a team that has momentum in a specific direction right now. I know a lot of people believe that their plan from day one was Jimmy Garoppolo and then him as 3 snaps as Taysom Hill plays. But did we watch the Oakland preseason game? Did we see what they did against the Chargers when John Lynch said their plan before the game was one drive of Jimmy Garoppolo,
Right.
2 drives of Trey Lance, then one more drive of Jimmy Garoppolo, but that didn't work out that way? Did we see the Albert Breer report where Jimmy Garoppolo explicitly told him that Kyle Shanahan told Jimmy Garoppolo that he was considering going a straight 2 quarterback system where he
Right.
switches them every other play and all of that? So
Right.
I mean, as much as we like to hypothesize that everything was good and dandy, they were always planning this in this way. It's you're not looking at any context or nuance if you believe that was the case because it clearly wasn't. I just think they have a rhythm right now. Garoppolo is playing good football, and because of that, they have no need to use Lance right now. They don't
It's
need him.
possible the offense kind of like overruled it too. Like it sounded after it wasn't particularly effective week one. The throw was good, the runs were not. And I think afterward, there were some pretty candid statements from Jimmy, like, yeah, it's a little weird, or I forget exactly what he said. Maybe internally there was like, Kyle asked, what'd you think of that? And they said, not pleased. So maybe
Yeah,
it was if the locker room doesn't want to do it, Kyle's not going to put himself against everyone.
and I will say this about Jimmy G. If I'm not, I'm now just going way on a tangent. But if I was in Jimmy G's shoes and I saw that he got to throw that touchdown pass, I'd be a little miffed too. Like, why does he get to come in and throw that touchdown pass? That's the easiest pass in the world.
Yeah, I led the
You
team
have
down
play
the
action,
field,
everybody pointing
and he
this
gets
way, and
this.
you have him coming out.
Right. So he gets to have the 158.3 quarterback or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Market says, did you see Debo slamming the ball after that catch on 2nd and long? It was a decent play, but he seemed pissed. I think it was because the weak pass. I thought he just could get yards after the catch.
it was the first 3rd and 15.
Yeah.
They ran him on a shallow. It was basically designed clear out Debo and just see how much he can get. I think he got like 8 yards. I thought he slammed the ball because I think he felt like he could get that first
That's what
down.
I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Ono says, interesting stat. During the Shanahan era, the Niners are 5-0 when he's staying on the East Coast between road games. Thoughts? It works. But what Shanahan was talking about today, which we've noticed, is that it you pay for it on the way back because jet lag is tougher when you come to the West Coast. And it takes like all week. You're probably recovered by the time the game comes next week, but during the practice that week, you're really sluggish, and they felt it. I mean, he talked about it today at length. So
I also think
it's a
they've
Monday
played.
game, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
That helps. That's
Yeah.
an extra
No,
day.
it's a Sunday night. Sunday night.
Oh, Sunday night. Well,
So
it
they
gives them a few
still
more
have
hours.
extra time.
Gives them a
Yeah.
few more hours. Yeah.
Sunday night's actually more difficult, right? If they're still not fully recovered because it
Yeah.
starts late Eastern, 8 Eastern. But what I
Yeah.
did want to say about real quick before we move on about the East Coast, they've also not played that many good teams when they've stayed on the East Coast. Like the Cincinnati team that they played in 2019. They had the first overall pick.
Also, the Niners
The
were not
Giants
good in
team
the
they
first
played
half
was
of this
not
game,
good.
so
The
you couldn't
Jets
really
were not
tell.
good. I still think Philadelphia is not that good, and Brandon Graham and Brandon Brooks' injuries, I think, will prove me to be right in the long
That hurt.
run because
That hurt.
those are 2 essential
That hurt
players.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Those guys were on their. Those guys are champions, no? Okay, look, we have more questions we're going to answer, but we're going to address a few more things first, and we'll get back to the questions. Another piece of news: Josh Norman, Kevin Gibbons, ankle injuries. Kevin Gibbons, high ankle sprain, going to be out for a while. He hasn't really made much of a positive impact yet. Josh Norman, don't know if he's going to miss the next game. Don't know if they would have needed him. They're hoping Emmanuel Mosley can come back, but he stepped up. He wasn't great. They targeted him twice, 2 pass interference penalties, but they never went at him again, which was interesting. They kept going at Lenore. So he did his job. Do you let's say Norman can't go next week. What do you think of what he gave this team and what they can do without him? Who's the next man up?
So So I don't think Norman was going to be the starter. I agree with you. I think it was Mosley. I think his ankle injury hurts from the standpoint that they have to go sign another cornerback
Right.
from the market that's already dry. Like at least he provided an extra depth piece. I actually think Norman Kirkpatrick, whichever
Yeah.
it's whatever, whichever way. I think both are a little bit prone to be grabby, pass interference. Speed is an issue for both, but Norman played confident, very confident. He played aggressive, which was good to see. And so I think, sure, his ankle injury sucks from a depth standpoint, but I'm with you overall. I think this is going to be an Emmanuel Mosley, Diamador Lenore cornerback tandem as long as those 2 guys are healthy. And I think as long as the 2 safeties and K'Wan Williams are healthy, and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa are healthy, those two guys can be successful in their defense. Kevin Gibbons, on the other hand, I've actually been pretty disappointed in how Kevin Gibbons played in the first game. I can't wait to watch the film on how he played in this game. I didn't even notice him at all in the broadcast, but I thought Kevin Gibbons last
Givens
year.
is a bad fit for the wide nine. I'll say that right now.
But as a pass rusher, he used to penetrate. He hasn't been penetrating as a defensive tackle. I think Street has been decidedly better than him. I think DJ Jones has always been better than him, and I think Javon Kinlaw is definitely in a different class than him. And I think it's been disappointing because he was one of those players I think we saw so much potential last year, especially down the stretch. And we thought if he takes another step and he goes from a guy who's flashing all over the place to becoming a consistent guy that can start and, be a player you can rely upon, there would be a lot of good things. So I've been disappointed. Maybe I don't know. I think that they have Zach Kerr. They'll have Mo Hurst coming back soon. So it's not too much of a big loss, but it's a loss nonetheless. I mean, you never want to see players go down, and the Niners seem to have a couple, 2 or 3 every week that seem to just get some sort of injury. So it's disappointing that way.
Leo says Nick Bosa struggles against tackles with elite athleticism, says Grant Cohn. Follows it up by throwing Penei Sewell and Jordan Mailata on their butts. Well, yeah, he did it to prove me wrong, so thank me. That's another level of quality control, is getting Nick Bosa to play his best.
Mailata is something. Philly has a great history of just getting good offensive linemen.
Thank you, Dia. Alex, thank you too. Jesse, my 2 favorite Jimmy haters. Jimmy the Great is dead. Jimmy the Great is dead last in the league in total air yards after 2 weeks. He is a changed man. Yeah, we're going to talk about Jimmy and the offense in a minute. We're almost there. Sean says, do you think that Kyle is intentionally presenting a vanilla offense so he can show new wrinkles as the season goes on? I think he's appeasing Jim's friends so he doesn't lose the team. I honestly think that's probably a lot of what's going on. Yes.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people are getting on the vanilla offense, but I thought that was one of Kyle Shanahan's best coached games as a head coach. I've seen you criticize
as a head coach.
I've seen you criticize him before
as a head
for maybe being too aggressive with his offense and trying to score. And I thought he had a great understanding of situation, how his defense was playing, and he had to construct 2 long drives to win that game, and he was able to do that. And I thought he made sure that his offense didn't lose that game because his offense turning the football over was the only thing that was going to lose that game because the defense had that offense on lock and key.
I'm glad that he ran the ball 38 times. I commend him for that. But I mean, the offensive coordinator, I didn't see. I mean, it was 17 points, and there wasn't a whole lot of creativity. But we're going to talk about him in a minute, and I'm not going to just totally dump on him either. But I just want to say that, like, I thought Jimmy did pretty good yesterday, considering. I mean, he's very efficient. I thought Jimmy played well.
I thought Jimmy played well.
Jimmy's fault that they only scored 17 points, and they were playing.
I thought he managed Jimmy too. I mean, he had 2 pretty ugly misses on a little bit more intermediate throws, and he managed him. He got him in a rhythm with the screen game, and then he had the hell of a throw to Debo that was just a strike.
Mini Meat June says the Ayuk is in the doghouse is BS. Quit with the speculations, Grant. So I'll be disappointed in you. We got 15 games left.
We just said we don't think he's in the doghouse, but to act like this situation is all good and dandy. I mean, did you think Brandon Ayuk was going to have 1 target after 2 games this season?
I don't know what the doghouse is, what the definition of the doghouse is, but the situation that Brandon Ayuk finds himself in is he gets, at best, 2 targets a game. So you tell me what that is.
He had 2 targets in 2 weeks.
Tell me what that is. What do you call that? What do you call that? Luis says, Mondays with Vish, the only upside of the start of the week. Ha! Thank you, Luis. Laying it down all the way from the shy. Justin says Lenore got burnt on the deep route. Did you see his closing speed after the catch? Impressive. I also saw Tart
was moving.
Let's talk about the defense. So the Niners win a game like that, and I'm reading game stories, and everyone's praising the offense for being clutch and leading long drives, and they definitely played their part. But let's be clear. Just because the quarterback is the most important player on a team doesn't mean that's the first person they should be praising after a win like this, because the defense was freaking terrific. What was your evaluation of this performance?
I agree with you. I feel like there's too much conversation about what the offense did. And look, those 2 long drives, they were mighty impressive. Take nothing away.
They
They
were
were
clutch.
impressive, and we're going to talk about it very soon. But this defense is what won them the football game, and special teams with Javon Kinlaw making one play that Javon Kinlaw just makes that play. Nobody else is, you can't control that. You can't coach that. It's just Javon Kinlaw going and making a play with the block field goal. But really, with the way the offense started this game, if it wasn't for clutch stops at every area from this defense, it looked like the Niners would have been down 17-0. And the way the offense moved the ball in this game and the way they were able to score, I don't think they would have been able to overcome a 17-0 deficit, especially the way Philadelphia's defensive line came out early.
Say that again real quick. How could it have been 17-0 had Kinlaw not gotten that amazing block? Had Lenore not pushed Rieger out of bounds by like a centimeter? And had
Hart not walked down Quez Watkins, it would actually been 20-0 because they kicked a field goal up on top of that.
Right. That's the game right there.
And this defense came to play. To me, this defense, I thought it would be special before the season. Week 1 was a little bit rough in a lot of areas. Week 2 was phenomenal. I have Nick Bosa. He's back to being Nick Bosa. He's what everybody thought he would be. He's a dominant player. Fred Warner is just the best middle linebacker in the NFL. There's nothing more to say on it. He's unbelievable. And then the 2 safeties. I've been talking about the 2 safeties ever since we started this show a year ago. And I feel like I've changed a lot of minds on the 2 safeties, but I also feel like a lot of people still push back heavy.
Hold on, we're gonna tease that one. We're gonna get to the safeties in a minute. We're gonna break down and talk about them. But before we get to the safeties, we're gonna save them because that's the biggest part of the defensive discussion. They were so freaking clutch. But it's just a little teaser. Let's go to the corners first. They stepped up.
Deommodore Lenoir is a player.
Yeah.
Deommodore Lenoir to me reminds me of Emmanuel Mosley. And it's nothing to do with his physical ability. Like here, Emmanuel Mosley is longer. Emmanuel Mosley is faster. But I think it's indicative of what the Niners do get when they get these late round corners. And it's indicative of how opposite Ahkello Witherspoon was from the other corners that they've coveted. Ahkello Witherspoon's opposite in the sense that his movement skills and his physical talent is off the charts. It's higher than any level of corner maybe we've ever seen I've personally ever seen the 49ers have. I mean, since I started watching 49ers football in 2004, there hasn't been a lot of really, really talented corners outside of maybe Carlos Rogers with the 49ers. You're talking about like top
when you got here.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ahkello Witherspoon, in terms of just movement skills, hips, speed, size, speed, all of that, he was unreal. But Lenoir fits into the Mosley mold.
He wasn't good.
Great tackler.
Great
tackler. Lenoir's a phenomenal tackler. Feisty competitor and has a lot of confidence. Lenoir doesn't get shaken by anything. And that's the same thing with Mosley. We saw Mosley have games where he's been, DeAndre Hopkins picked on him week 1, but every time he comes back, he plays with the same confidence. They play smart. They tackle really well. They play aggressive. They're feisty. And to me, Lenoir is just a keeper. I was a little skeptical, honestly, of the pick because a 5th-round corner with his height, weight, speed, you're not really sure. But his intangible effect on this team, his patience at the line of scrimmage, all these kinds of things, these little things, I think are going to make him have a really long career.
He looks like a solid starter for sure. I thought he really actually got the best of Devontae Smith. Am I wrong?
I thought he did too.
That's really impressive.
Now, I'm not sure how good little things.
Yeah.
I thought there were so many little things he did in terms of, first of all, even the Jalen Reagor out of bounds, he stayed in phase with Jalen Reagor for most of that play. And Jalen Reagor runs 4.4 and Lenoir's a 4.5 guy. And then he was able to use his body and use the sideline really, really well. He's a good player. And to me, he's the standout draft pick. I was talking to somebody a little bit before I hinted to you about this that was telling me, that the one draft pick they feel can contribute this year is Lenoir. The rest of them, question marks. And that person who told me that, very, very knowledgeable person about the 49ers, is absolutely right because Lenoir is contributing. Yes, it was not Grant. I was telling Grant that I was told this by that person.
So good for Lenoir. The one thing I did see, and I mean, look, he wasn't a first-round pick. He definitely isn't the perfect cornerback prospect. You saw him give up the 91-yard catch that could have been a 97-yard touchdown if not for Jaquiski Tartt. Then we'd be getting on Lenoir right now. I do think his best qualities will get him in trouble sometimes because he's very aggressive. In press man, I mean, he stands there like he's Jalen Ramsey. He's like, what? I love this kid. He's great. He's very confident, but he doesn't have 4.3 speed, and that Watkins kid does.
I actually wouldn't have gotten on him if Quez Watkins scored that touchdown. I feel like it was a bad spot. They blitzed. They tried to get him down. Hurts stood right there. And you want to talk about a hell of a deep ball under pressure? That was a rocket ball. And then Quez Watkins' run is legit 4.3. And Lenoir, if you're Lenoir, right, you're the guy is throwing from his own end zone. You're blitzing. Obviously, you're not thinking they're going to go straight by you and throw a go, right?
And I think there was a little bit of like a stutter go. I think there was a little bit of a fake, I want to say, from Quez Watkins. Anyway, the only thing I'm looking at with Lenoir is he's very confident. They're confident in him. The Eagles definitely were more interested in going after him than Norman for whatever reason. I mean, if you look at Hurts's passing chart, it's a bunch of 4-yard passes and a ton of shots up the right sideline or the Niners' left sideline. And I don't know what they thought they saw, but that's what all they wanted to do. Maybe it suited their personnel better. Maybe Hurts is more comfortable throwing up the right sideline than the left. I don't know.
So I was going to make that observation. Yeah, to me, that was the big TV takeaway. I'd love to go back and watch this on film, and then I'd love to go back and watch the first game Jalen Hurts played against Atlanta, because I think Lenoir's their starting left cornerback, right?
Yes.
Yeah. To me, Hurts only threw the ball right. He rolls to his right every time. He doesn't roll to his left. And to me, he only throws the ball right.
It's true. That's a good point. There were some throws to the left, but they were all like 4-yard throws. I think you're absolutely right. There was nothing over the middle.
That's how I saw it on the broadcast. I'd love to go back and actually see it, but I thought, he's not an over-the-middle throw. I mean, it requires a little bit more anticipation and patience from the pocket, and he doesn't have that at this point in my opinion.
No, he doesn't. Absolutely not. Now, I thought when Verrett and Mosley were healthy that Verrett was the right corner and Mosley was the left corner, so I don't know exactly where Lenoir will end up if Mosley comes back, but doesn't really matter for now. Let's talk about these safeties because you have a lot to say. These guys, Tart saved a touchdown. They both did. Tart saved the touchdown on Quez Watkins' catch, and Ward ran Hurts out of bounds at the 2 on 3rd and goal. I can get the exact quote. The quote from Kyle Shanahan today about these safeties. He said, "I think we have 2 safeties back there who are as good as anyone doing it." Also mentioned how it's going to be tough one-on-one downfield with receivers. Said Ward and Tart have done a hell of a job.
Yeah, they both, the 2 highlight plays for each of them, right, was Tart showing the unbelievable effort and just speed. I mean, Jaquiski Tart runs 4.4. He looked like, and
he had a turf toe. He had a freaking turf toe until like 3 weeks ago, man. Wow.
It's also a great angle by Tart. Yep. It's a great angle. But Jimmy Ward, of course, him being able to run Jalen Hurts down to the sideline after a little bit of miscommunication going on. But I thought both of those plays were unbelievable, but they also both had individual plays on deep ball where it was just them and the receiver. Tart very early in the game, Ward a little bit later in the game, where they didn't commit pass interference. They made the play on the ball and they batted it down, which to me is very difficult, as Shanahan mentioned. But I want to go back to that quote because he said, what did Kyle Shanahan say? He said, "We have 2 safeties as good as anyone." Grant Cohn, who's been saying that these 2 safeties are like that for 1 year now?
Me. Just kidding. It was you, Vish. It was you. Yeah, that's right.
And I thought this game really highlighted it because, they made those 2 plays that really stand out in terms of the construct of the game, but they also do a lot of little things that people don't get to see. If you saw, I think they had an early run where Tart had a great explosive first step on the fit and he blew up the run and they had 1 yard in the backfield. Jimmy Ward was aggressive. Jimmy Ward, I saw a couple of times, was manned up with Zach Ertz in the slot, was manned up with Goddard in the slot. And did Goddard or Ertz get thrown the ball? No, these 2 safeties are unbelievable. What they do doesn't get seen in the box score. But I tweeted this after the quote. It's like very few teams have 1 safety that can play in the box and you can put in the post, right? Seattle has Jamal Adams, who you can play in the box, and he's unbelievable in the box, but you can't put him in the post. And Quandre Diggs is the exact opposite. He can't play in the box, but he's terrific in the post. Maybe Buffalo's the only team that has 2 guys that do both in Hyde and Poyer. But everybody else, if you have Budda Baker that can do both, even Minka's not the best in the box, so you can't do both with him. Chargers have Derwin, who does both. Justin Simmons, John Johnson, they can do both. But the Niners have 2. both Tart and Ward are terrific in the post. Both of them can play in the box. Both of them are very smart. They know their cues. These two guys to me are two of the best football players on this team. I've been saying it for a while now. And I think that what they showed is that a defense with these two guys healthy, Fred Warner, and you have Nick Bosa in front, can compete with anybody because they put such pressure. They have such great speed. They take such smart angles to the football. They play smart and they tackle so well as a team. I think that both of these guys are unbelievable, and I'm glad and I'm hoping they stay healthy because I think after 17 games, we might be talking about like, wow, the Niners have 2 Pro Bowl safeties. And I'll be like, yeah, they've had 2 Pro Bowl safeties. It's just those two guys have been unable to stay healthy for the entire season to be able to get their accolades for their play.
Tom Foolery says, hot take, Eagles put too much on Mailata too quickly. A big athletic tackle can be great if his technique is sound, but Bosa exploited his inexperience. Bosa's good, too.
Yeah, Bosa's really good.
No, I hear what you're saying, Tom. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I definitely hear what you're saying. That's a good point. Alex, that's a great point. I love that point. Thank you. Sacramento Mike says, how's it going, fellas? The defensive play calling was great from the mix of zone and man. With blitz packages, Armstead, Bosa, Tart, Aziz stepped up. Yeah, the defense really was.
Defense
they gave up
all
3
across
points.
the board.
It was like a 3-point output they gave up until very late. What does it take for the Niners to be Super Bowl contenders?
I think we need to see more from their offense, honestly.
Yeah.
They've had a Super Bowl defense, but even with injuries, they had a Super Bowl defense last year, too.
True. That's true. Jeff Bernardo says, do you believe Kyle is taking the same route with Trey that Andy Reid did with Mahomes and have him grow on the sideline behind the vet? Seems like it. It just seems like there's differences between them because Mahomes had a lot more playing time in college. Mahomes didn't take a year off before he came to the NFL. It seems like what Lance needs more than anything is playing time, but what do I know?
I think I agree with that, but I also want to say one more thing. I think the only similarities between Mahomes and Trey Lance is that both teams had a comfortable NFL starter on their roster, and they still made a move for the quarterback. But the Chiefs move, and I've said this many times, I think the Chiefs' moves was solely to get Patrick Mahomes. They traded up in that draft. I wonder if they would have traded up at all if Patrick Mahomes was taken 3rd in that draft by the 49ers.
Right.
Do you think they would have traded up?
No.
I don't think so. I think they traded up because they thought Mahomes was special. They weren't flirting with Kirk Cousins or saying they were going to flirt with Kirk Cousins that offseason or going to be involved.
The Niners have been on record saying they traded up before they knew who they wanted.
Yeah, and they also have been on record saying they flirted with Matt. They considered and went through the Matthew Stafford route. They considered Kirk Cousins and went through that route. They considered Tom Brady, went through that route. Talked about Deshaun Watson. They talked about Sam Darnold. Every available quarterback, they've had that discussion. To me, the Chiefs were happy with where they were with Alex Smith and then saw Mahomes as something special and went to get that. The Niners felt like they needed something better at quarterback. And then they ultimately landed that Trey Lance was going to be the best way for them to get better eventually at quarterback.
Agree. This guy says Lenore's feet got tripped by the wide receiver on that 91-yard play. I thought he got tripped over his own feet. I don't know. One way or another, he got tripped up a little bit for sure.
I wish we got more replays. The broadcast sucks, man. That fifth Fox crew of Chris Myers and Mark Schlereth.
There were like two replays in that game. I noticed that too. I kept having to replay it like on my own TV. Jonathan says, I know it's early, but this year's draft class already in question when the first 3 picks have only been the field for 5 plays or so. I mean, you got Banks and Ambry Thomas are inactive. I mean, they got their usual 5th round treasure, but it's a little bit odd. It's like I don't understand if Lance and Banks and Sermon had just like really stunk in training camp or in the regular season, but it seems like Kyle just kind of made his mind up that they're not ready. All 3 of them. Maybe he's right about all 3, but I don't know. It's 4 too. Sermon too. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it felt like Banks and Ambry maybe struggled a little more in camp, but the other 2, Sermon and Lance, by all accounts, not just you, everybody, it felt like they were all having strong camps. So
yeah, strange. My guy says best Niner vlog on YouTube bar none. Your chemistry is on point. Content is 100. Thank you for the coverage, guys. Thank you very much. My guy. Appreciate it. Off topic, the jacket fire. Oh yeah. I got a new jacket.
What is it?
It's another one of these. It's a quality control, but it's like an actual like gray blazer that has it embroidered on the back. My Rhino says What?
The
Go ahead. Go
problem
ahead.
is if you wear this jacket, then Philadelphia Eagles aren't going to call you up and ask for your sage advice because they're thinking this is a 49ers employee.
Yeah, they just don't understand. It's their loss. My Rhino says, Vish, you really impressed with your analysis and ability to look at the Niners objectively. This 25 is for you. How about just the fact that they're 2-0 on the road and sellouts to open the season?
Really appreciate that, my Rhino, and I'm real excited. It's my life is always better when the 49ers are good.
How
There's
about
no
that, Vish?
doubt about that.
All right, next time I see Vish in Chicago, I will get him a $25 Grey Goose on the rocks for you. I will, though. Last time Vish was out here, I took care of him. Let me get you again.
We had a good time.
Russ says, don't D-line players watch game film afterwards? Can't they see how the outside rushers moving inside always result in QB runs for first down and more? Yeah, man. This is another thing I want to talk about with the defense. The other thing that I would kvetch about, and that's a Yiddish word about which means complain, is the lack of containment, and it's a league-wide epidemic. It's really hard. I know it's very hard to keep quarterbacks in the pocket, but I mean the Niners are terrible at it. The only reason that he didn't run for more yards is because they didn't try to.
But I feel like it's a coaching point with the Niners.
Yes.
They don't coach their defensive linemen to play with gap integrity. They've invested all their money in their defensive line. They want Dee Ford, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa to have blinders and go get the quarterback. And then obviously Saleh kept talking about it in 2019. Stop the run on the way to the quarterback. They want them to get the
best way
first.
to stop pocket quarterbacks for sure. But then mobile quarterbacks, it just makes it easier for them. To me, it's like, I don't know. Like when quarterbacks are on the perimeter, it's a lot like 3-point shots in the NBA. For a long time, it was poo-pooed. You don't run your offense that way. You have to get close to the basket. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is teams are like, well, maybe we should shoot 50% of our shots from 3-point. Maybe we should really test this. And I think we may see that eventually with teams in the NFL because the quarterbacks that college is producing are guys who are really good on the perimeter and aren't that, I mean, with the exception of Mac Jones, aren't very advanced from the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's been two. Joe Burrow and Mac Jones were like
they come out every
prodigies,
couple of years.
Yeah.
For sure. They come out every couple of years. But mostly.
But then you have Dwayne Haskins and Josh Rosen.
And everyone gets fired, and then they bounce out and they're out of the league in 3 years. So I just embrace the 3-point shot, which is the perimeter game for the quarterback. I know you got to win from the pocket, and that's what they tell you. But then until someone does it another way. And then I don't know. I'm just rambling.
I mean, Russell Wilson did it the other way already.
Exactly. And really, Mahomes, although he's great from the pocket, so much of his game is the ability to get out of it. Russ says, don't D-line players. Oh, we talked about that already. Yeah. Sorry, Russ. I mean, not sorry. We answered your question. Thank you, Russ. Chris says, I get Jimmy starting right now, but Walsh used to put Young in when up by 30 and also to give him a spark the offense when needed like yesterday. Yeah, this is before our time, but standard. In fact, okay, we're going to get to more questions. You guys appreciate the donations rolling in. Let's get to the offense. Let's get to Jimmy first. We both said earlier that we thought Jimmy Garoppolo played well. I gave him a B for this game. I gave him a B+ for the previous game. He's playing a good season so far. What have you seen?
Yeah, I think he's playing well. So my assessment of this game is that I think all in one game, we saw exactly why the 49ers want to upgrade the quarterback position and why they traded up to 3 to draft the quarterback that they have. We also saw why Jimmy Garoppolo has been successful in the NFL and why, I mean, just about everybody considers him to be a solid starting quarterback and the kind of guy, like, you don't pay him to be your backup. He's a starter, you know? And I think we saw that all wrapped in a vacuum, right? Like the throw to Debo, right? The throw to Debo, unbelievable throw, unbelievable anticipation, timing over the middle of the field. And it's a small window and he ripped it in there. And he, for the most part, over the middle of the field, he understands leverage pretty well. He throws with a ton of anticipation over the middle of the field. And any in-breaking route, the drift route especially, he just rips it with utter confidence. But then we also saw the aspects of Jimmy Garoppolo as to why the 49ers would feel they need to trade up to 3 and get a quarterback. Like the out to Mosanu, right? I mean, he tried throwing, Croc talked about it he put a Twitter thread out, and it was somewhat of a layer ball. I don't think that ball was that layered. I think he just flat out missed that ball. It was a clean pocket. He got the snap. It's I think it was 3rd and 8. Sanu's wide open. You got to put that ball on him, and he just sailed that ball. The one to Sherfield, that one required a little bit of layering. But again, Garoppolo that's the type of throw that the upper echelon quarterbacks make. When you have a holding penalty, you come back, he rips that throw, you're in 2nd and 3. That's the kind of throw he needs to be able to make. He wasn't able to make. Then the one that Josh Sweat blew by McGlinchey to Ayuk, he still had time to come off the fake, locate Ayuk, and rip that ball while taking a hit, and he didn't. But we also saw then the other aspects of Garoppolo, right? We saw
the worst throw was the
things,
one that Steven Nelson dropped. I mean, McGlinchey got
the one to Debo, right.
The one
the
that
Debo
Steven Nelson dropped.
yeah,
You really see why Kyle
six.
doesn't really. If Kyle's calling passes outside the numbers, either it's a deep shot to Debo or it's 5 yards outside. I mean, if it's on a line, it's a 5-yard throw.
That was a pick six throw. It was a pick six throw. He threw a pick six. Steven Nelson, Debo made a great play to make sure Steven Nelson doesn't pick that. But the point is, I mean, we saw those things and we agree those are his weaknesses, but we also saw his strengths, right? He's tough. He's gritty. He moves well in the pocket. And I think that's something that we didn't see him do in 2020. But he moved well in the pocket in week 1. He once again moved well in the pocket in this game. He made a big time throw to Debo over the middle of the field. That was a great throw on that 2-minute drill. I think something that's been a good thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is we've talked about his air yards ad nauseum, but I think one of the biggest things and changes with him is a lot of his shorter throws wouldn't be checkdowns. He would not locate his checkdown and find his checkdown when plays were dead. And it was kind of weird because he threw the ball so short, but he's not actually checking the ball down. And that's where people would draw the distinction. I think this season so far, it's been just 2 games. He's done a really good job of being mature in the pocket. And okay, nothing's there. Let me get out and run and try to get 4 yards here. Let me just flip it out to Hasty and get 5 yards here. And he's been doing that to me really well. That's been good to see. And I just think overall he's played consistent. He's played clean. I don't attribute wins as a quarterback stat. We're going to talk about it. There were a few factors that aided them in winning this game that went beyond Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think those people should be credited again with the win, not just Garoppolo. But I think overall he's played good, solid football. But I think we do also see the aspects that leave you wanting with him.
Yeah, no, I just want to be real positive with Jimmy today. I mean, what I want to say about Jimmy is we come on the show and we talk about his limitations all the time. And he's limited. But you know what? So am I. We all have our limitations. And you don't have to be criticized constantly for things that you can't control. He's limited. Okay, that's why Trey Lance is here. But what I've seen from him in the first 2 weeks of this season is he's playing the best he can. He's not turning the ball over. He's not, transcending his skill set and turning into a new guy. And he's not an MVP candidate. And he's probably someone you wouldn't really want to be your franchise quarterback. But he's playing as well as he freaking can. And he deserves credit for that. I mean, it's not like the offensive game plans have been so great. He's got one guy on offense balling out right now. There are injuries. And I think he deserves credit for going out there and doing as well as he possibly can.
You know what he's doing? We've complained about him not playing clean, veteran, mature football. He's playing mature, clean football, and it looks good. And I think it's positive. And I mean, we're the quote unquote Jimmy haters. I feel like you are more so than me. But I think that it's positive in that sense. And what I did want to say is I feel like a lot of people always are wondering, why do you harp on his weaknesses? Why do you harp on his weaknesses? And I didn't understand that until I actually had to come on a platform and start talking. And the reason people harp on his weaknesses is because when you're someone that has to talk about something and create topics and stuff, you have to give reasons as to why things are happening the way they are. Jimmy Garoppolo is a solid starting quarterback, but you have to provide reasons as to why the 49ers are interested in Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold and Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady and Matt Jones and Kirk Cousins. And you go down the list, and because the 49ers are the ones flirting with every quarterback, now you're stuck in a conversation where you have to say, okay, what's wrong with this guy? Why don't they want this guy? Why is Kyle Shanahan not fully invested in this guy? And that's where you lead down this rabbit hole of consistently talking about the things he can't do. Right. But if the Niners weren't having those conversations, I think most people would be happy with the things he can do, because the things he can do, it's shown it's effective enough to win with, and he's a solid starter.
Right. And it's like the fact that the Niners only scored 17 points in this game, I don't really put it on him. I mean, he's not the running back. He's not really involved in the running game. The running game didn't work. They stuck with it, which is commendable, and it's a big reason they won. But he was efficient. I mean, he didn't throw for a lot of yards. He didn't have a lot of yards per attempt. He was efficient. He didn't turn the ball over. I just want to say, Jimmy, I see you. But let's talk about
those 2 drives are clean. Those two drives were clean. They were
Jimmy,
good
I
drives.
see you. You struggled early on. You got your stuff together. You didn't give the game away. You won. I see you. Let's talk about the offense. Then we're going to answer some questions. This offense started out great. The first 2 quarters, they couldn't miss, but they weren't. I mean, anyone who's watched the Niners offense for a long time knows that like they were burning the Lions with standard stuff. I mean, just stuff they've been doing for a long time. It wasn't like shocking. It wasn't like the Panthers game from 2 years ago. It was just like, oh, you've never seen the play action throw over the middle of Debo? Well, you're going to lose. Okay, so that was great, 31 points. And then since then, it's been a lot more difficult, 27 points the last 6 quarters. And I think what we've seen, Josh Norris posted this, tweeted this, and you went on with him. He's really, really smart. From afar, he basically said, what this offense is 2 weeks in is screens, runs, control the time of possession as best as you can and wait for Debo to make a play and be special. And he's saying like that's a dangerous game to play when you're going up against better teams. And basically, they're doing the bare minimum right now on offense to win. I totally freaking agree with him. What do you think?
I agree with that too. I think this offense has to play better. I mean, I still don't know how good Philadelphia's defense is. I know a lot of people jump on that Atlanta performance and say, oh, they played really well. Well, Brandon Graham got hurt pretty early in this football game.
True.
Brandon Graham's an impact player on defense. And Atlanta's offensive line, let's say what it is. It sucks. It sucks. I know a lot of people thought the Niners' offensive line was bad last year. Atlanta would pay everything of their franchise worth to have the Niners' offensive line from last year. It is terrible. And the Eagles' defensive line kicked their butts. Well, so I don't know how good this Eagles defense is. I'd love to see them go against even their division teams. I'd love to see how they handle Dallas. I'd love to see how they handle even like the Giants or the Redskins, or the Washington football team, because I'm not sure that this Eagles defense is that good, because I think they have weaknesses, especially at linebacker. I think their corners outside of Slay, I think Steven Nelson is pretty good, but I think he can be had. And I think their safeties also aren't like just groundbreakers. So I think overall, Eagles defense isn't that great, but I think this offense just has to play better. I think the big thing is we thought this offense would run the ball better. They just keep losing running backs. Like with Raheem Mostert, I feel like this offense would look a lot better because he makes things go.
You get a guaranteed 9 yards on first down. It makes it all so much easier.
It makes it go. I think number 2, we expected George Kittle to be getting the ball more. George Kittle has had an unbelievable season blocking. He's been an unbelievable blocker 2 games into this season. He feels lost in the pass game. I thought the Eagles did a lot of things to make sure he didn't get a part of this game. But I thought the Lions game, it felt like Debo. And it felt like Kittle just fell out of, the game plan and the structure and where they were going with that. Juszczyk, we haven't seen any leak plays and trying to get him open in the pass game and use him. And the big other thing is the 4th guy for this offense, the guy that was supposed to make this offense, when you look at their 3 weapons, it's as good as anybody has in the NFL to go with Debo and Kittle is Ayuk. And we have not seen Ayuk be involved in any capacity with this offense. We've not seen him used in jet sweep game. We have not seen him used in screen game, anything like that, utilizing his after the catch ability, all of that. So overall, to me,
I wonder what's up with Sermon. I mean, okay, he may have fumbled a couple of times in practice. You're being tough. He looked good in his first carry, and to only give Mitchell carries for 2 games, I mean, use a committee. Let him compete and show you what you got. But anyway, so real quick, 2 things that I questioned is like, first of all, are you playing your best players on offense consistently? Because if you're not doing. I mean, you're putting the rest of your team at a disadvantage. They have to make up for that. And the other thing I wanted to say was I forget. But it was a good point, and I'll figure it out eventually. It was great.
And I think the reason this is such a topic of conversation, the offense did more than enough to win both of these games. I don't think that's the problem. Certainly. But when you play a team like Arizona, what they have with their front defensively, you play Seattle with Bobby Wagner, you play the Rams. Screen game, run game, not going to get it done. You're going to have to evolve more and have a more explosive element to their offense. And to me, right now, in simplest form, the 49ers offense looks like Debo Samuel or bust.
Right. And so I guess what we're saying is, the other thing I wanted to say, okay, so I'm questioning whether he's using his best players on offense. I'm questioning where's the creativity? Like, and maybe it's not that Kyle Shanahan's like asleep on the job. I'm not saying that, but maybe it's just that he's sort of taken this Jimmy Garoppolo offense as far as it can go. What more wrinkles can he? How many ways can you throw the ball within 10 yards in the line of scrimmage? How many? How many different ways can you run the ball? I mean, it seems like he's done it. And I think what we thought was Trey Lance is gonna unlock all this creativity, and he will eventually, theoretically. But right now, I don't know how much more creativity you can unlock with this skill set at quarterback.
And that might be the case. I think the other indication is maybe Kyle Shanahan is coaching in the sense that he does not want to risk creativity for creativity's sake. If his offense needs to play like that, if he feels that his defense is struggling in a game, maybe that's when he'll start to unleash and start pushing and creating things for his offense. Maybe he's trying to coach within himself and say, look, my defense is playing good. We're not playing that good teams. I just want to make sure my offense isn't turning the football over, and I want to get runs in. I want to ball control. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I would love to wait and see how this offense looks after 5-6 weeks. Just see what the Ayuk situation is there. See maybe if they get Kittle more involved. But right now, the one good thing is, and I'm feeling great about it because he's my favorite player in the NFL. Deebo Samuel looks special.
Absolutely. He's looking like he's going to have an all-time Niner season. My only thing with Kyle, I keep coming back to Kyle because I always dump on Jimmy. And it's like, what about Kyle? Hold on. It's an offensive thing right now. This week, the defense gets their flowers and the offense gets a little bit of, I don't know, inspection. What's going on here? Is it a problem? And I don't think Jimmy's the problem right now. And I mean, he's not the long-term solution. But to me, what happened week 1 is they scored a lot of points. So, I mean, I don't know what happened in the second half, but what happened week 2 was his run game wasn't great. And it made everything very difficult. Usually his run game is almost unstoppable no matter who he's going against. And he got really, I mean, Cordell Patterson had more success than these guys had against the Eagles. So I think it's fair to say, Kyle, we expect you. I mean, maybe it's a high bar, but we have high expectations for you. We have low expectations for Jimmy to the point where we applaud quarterback sneaks. Hell of a quarterback sneak, but no, Kyle, you're the best. We expect more than 17 points. We expect more than 3.1 yards per carry because you're so good. So good. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And honestly, that would be my best guess, just going back, that they're just trying to make sure that they're coaching within themselves. They don't want to risk anything with this offense at this point because they don't want to lose games that they should win. And they did that a lot last year. If you go back and look, the games they lost with Nick Mullins, obviously Mullins turned the ball over like it was his job to turn the ball over all of those games. But their defense was shutting teams down. The Washington football team could not move the ball for a second half. They shut down Arizona. They shut down Seattle in that second game in Arizona. And really, I mean, obviously Beathard hurt at quarterback, Mullins hurt at quarterback, but it felt like if they played offense the way they played the last 2 weeks, they could have possibly won a couple of those games because they wouldn't have put Mullins in situations to give away those games. And so I think maybe that was kind of their introspection after this offseason, that if our defense is playing this well, there's no need for us to go excess. And
I guess all I would say as quality control is when you have your foot on a team's throat, end it. And I feel like you had it on the throat of the Lions at halftime. And I mean, you never really had it on the Eagles' throat, but they had 3 points by the end of they had 3 points till late. Those should have been quick, like clean wins. And because they weren't, you were fighting hard in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The other team was fighting hard in the fourth quarter. There's casualties. And maybe those would have happened anyway, but that's the only thing I'm saying. Kyle, put games away, for crying out loud.
No, I agree. I agree with you. And I have one question for you then based on it, because I thought the offense in general was sluggish most of this game. They were able to fight through and get those drives, but they were sluggish. Yeah. Do you think if Kyle Shanahan asked more of this offense, things could have fallen apart? Like Jimmy maybe comes off play action. There's just because there was timing was off
this in a minute with the Trey Lance thing. But my whole thing was like, look, if you don't trust Trey Lance to throw, I don't understand that, because he did throw a touchdown. And he looked just fine against the Lions. But just as a way to get your running game going, bring Trey Lance in for a handoff, see what happens. You don't even have to let him. He doesn't even have to run. But just the threat of him, people are going to be looking at him. Let him hand off from the gun, from the under center. See if something happens. If that's all you have to do, just give it a shot. It's an experiment.
Silly me, but excuse me. I thought that this was the game that he was tailor-made for. Everything was sluggish. The team needed that juice and energy. Just bring him on, have him run a quick read option play or a zone.
How did they use him against the Raiders?
Like that. Like, huh?
How did they use him against the Raiders? What did he do against the Raiders? He handed off. Handed off a million times. But why not? Your average yards a carry couldn't hurt.
Yeah, I thought that would be
That's
the
all I'm
way to
saying.
get juice, but I don't
That's
know.
all
I
I'm
don't know.
saying.
They
And
won,
so
so
okay. Let's talk about this right now. We're gonna
yeah.
answer your questions, but we got to get into this right now, and then we'll stop and answer your questions. So I asked Kyle Shanahan on the conference call today. I was not a jerk, guys. I just want to say I wasn't accusatory. I thought it was a fair question. I said, because he's 2-0. I'm not jumping down his throat. He's 2-0. I said, Kyle, was it the plan not to use Trey Lance in this game, or was it the way the game unfolded? Did that prevent you from inserting him for a few plays? Like, I just want to know, was it the plan, or did it unfold that way? And he basically said, it's never the plan to use Trey Lance. I use him when I feel like it, and I didn't have the urge against the Eagles. That's essentially what he said. Tim Kawakami followed up. I forget what he asked, and Kyle essentially said, look, like it'd be great to play him and develop him, but we're only going to play him if his skill set gives us something that we don't already have that we need to beat a team. And that's the only reason. So it's not like, we're going to find ways to develop him. The development will come if we absolutely need him to win a game. That's what he said. What do you think of his explanation for not using Lance?
I don't think it was much of an explanation. We have no clue what his feelings are. He didn't say, "Oh, I felt I didn't need him in this game."
He didn't say his
X, Y, and
development
Z.
is a priority to me. He said, I'm trying to win games. And if I can use him to help me win a game, then great, he'll be in there. But his development is low on the list, is essentially what he said. I mean, we got to win. End of story. And if he can help us, if he can, great. If not, who cares? We're going to win. We're going to live week by week. That's what he's saying. It just seems like an odd tack to take after you traded up for the guy. Like, isn't that a project you are invested in? I don't understand.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to why the 49ers. Am I echoing?
No, you're good.
Oh, why the 49ers trade up for him in the first place was just a little bit bizarre, because this was a win now team that made a move that teams that are trying to reset made. And then they brought back a win now roster, but they didn't help that win now roster to win now, because they made a new move that most people think is for 2022 and 2023.
Right.
And the NFL is a win now league. There's no such thing as planning for 2024. There's no grand plan that happens. The Cleveland Browns have been planning for 2025 ever since their last made the playoffs in the 90s with Belichick, and then they finally got Stefanski, who came in and he took that same exact roster that did not do well the year before with Freddie Kitchens, and they won now. It's a win now league. Yeah. And so it's a little bit confusing. I don't know how they're going to develop him. I don't know how they're going to make that a priority. I can imagine there's only so many more things he can fix. Mechanically, he's been doing that for 1 year. I wonder, my question is, and this was one of my biggest questions with Trey Lance, okay? There are, I agreed with people that there were things he needed to develop in his game. So what I was confused was about how a guy is going to develop 2 years not playing football when he has very little football experience behind him.
Yeah.
And that was and if you remember, I don't know if I ever said this on your show. I probably did, because we talked about Trey Lance before the draft a lot. We talked about all the quarterbacks a lot. But I mentioned to you on the phone where I didn't think he fit the 49ers timeline. That's why it was Mac Jones, Justin Fields. Those were my two guys, and Justin Fields was one. Yeah. And because of that, and he still has a chance to be unbelievable. He has a good chance of being better than both given his location. But when you talk about this and you say, oh, he needs to develop, or they're not focused on his development. Yeah, obviously they're not focused on his development. Teams don't develop players during the season. Development in the NFL happens in OTAs. That's when development happens. Then they send them back and they expect them to work on everything they've developed and be ready to execute in training camp, because from training camp on, you're prepping for week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and just trying to go through the season and win football games.
Yeah, I just want to quibble with two things Kyle said. So I disagree with him. I know that his primary job is to win games, but when you traded up for this guy, when you willingly brought him onto your team, you put yourself in a situation where you have two objectives: win and develop him. And so you are now looking for opportunities to develop him in games. And that's the position you put yourself in. And then two, you said you're only going to play him if he can help you win that game, and you didn't feel he could against the Eagles. Well, I disagree with that too. I mean, again, you're averaging 3 yards a carry. Jimmy can't help you there. It's not his fault. It's not his skill set. You're looking for a spark in the run game. He can help. I mean, for not just him, but like you didn't even try another running back until the fourth quarter. You got to try something new in these cases. So I felt like Sunday was a good opportunity for him to help you win because you left it up to the defense and special teams, let's be frank. And also those reps could have helped him develop because what he needs more than anything is playing time. So I just got to quibble with you on those two things, Kyle. But as long as you're 2-0, they're just quibbles. They're just quibbles.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest issue is that, and I think it's just he shouldn't and he doesn't have to, but I wish he would. He doesn't give any indication
Feel
of
bad for Lance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't give.
I mean, like, what did you get drafted into, man? There's a lot of baggage here. It's like, whoa.
I mean, everybody thinks that, oh, this is what he's been saying from day one. But look at his actions. This is not what they were planning from day one, to have Jimmy Garoppolo play every single snap of a football game. Look at the Chargers preseason game. What did John Lynch tell you the plan was? One drive of Jimmy, 2 drives of Trey, 1 drive of Jimmy. Albert Breer article. What did Breer say that Garoppolo was unhappy about and was not a fan of? And he voiced that to Kyle because there's been open communication to everything. Kyle suggested at one point that they would run a 2-quarterback system. Go look at the Raiders game that had everybody debating whether the 2-quarterback system is going to work.
I think it's unpopular in the locker room. I think Jimmy doesn't like it, and I think people like Jimmy.
They were substituting each other every other play. And so that's where I get to the point and I say, this was obviously not the plan. And he says, oh, I play him when I feel like it. You obviously, before, it wasn't to use him as Taysom Hill one game and not use him the next game. You were obviously trying to use him and try this 2-quarterback system because you felt like he did add something else with his ability to run. So even if he wasn't your starter this year, you wanted to use his ability to run.
Yeah, and again, a game where you're scoring 17 points and averaging 3 yards a carry, great time. That's a great time to unveil a new rushing threat. I'm just saying. All right, we have a half hour worth of comments to get through. Matt says, are these picks Lance Sermon Banks for a plan that got pushed to next year because they all signed their free agents, or is there no plan? I think those are the questions there. Is there a plan or isn't there a plan? Hamlet would have to figure this one out. We don't know. I don't
think Banks was a draft pick for a year later. I just think Banks had a poor camp.
Yeah, I agree. And then he got hurt. Jay says, agree with Vish. Kyle wants someone better at quarterback now, but he does not go. Trey doesn't know if Trey is that guy today. He will be, but not right now. Yeah, you have Kyle is sort of unsatisfied with both quarterbacks. Kyle's always kind of unsatisfied. He's perpetually unsatisfied. Ominous24 says, when Jimmy gets hurt running a sneak, will Kyle try to convince us that Trey isn't ready and Sudfeld gives him the best chance to win? I don't think so. But Niner fans can be so cynical, and I like that. I like a cynical sports fan because
you love these types of
questions. A cynical sports fan, Alex,
because they get you thinking too.
Absolutely. Tony says, until the goal line stand, I really didn't like the game D'Amico was calling. What are your assessments of the Niners as a blitzing team so far?
They don't actually blitz a lot. They maybe rush 5 a bit more and play a bit more man than they did with Saleh, but they don't blitz an excessive amount. I do wish they played a bit more split safety. I think it's the way to go in the NFL, and I think Saleh laid out a blueprint with Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward, how many things you can do and make your defense a lot more creative, even though in base, it's really a very, very sound defense rather than a creative. Well,
to be fair, real quick, I think Ryans was going against 2 offenses he didn't respect through the air. If he plays 2 single high against the Packers, oh my God. So we'll see what happens here. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and think he's going to go split against the Packers because that's a pass. Fair enough. I'm just saying, I would understand going 8 in the box in those last 2 games, and it worked out in the second time. Do you think an underrated part of this team has been the pass protection? They're doing well so far.
They're doing great.
I think it's fair to point out that week 1 they faced a bad pass rush, and week 2 they faced a great pass rush and threw a lot of quick passes.
And didn't throw. They didn't have true drop back situations, but they've played well. McGlinchey's looked good. Right. Williams looked good. Laken Tomlinson's looked good. Max looked good.
They'll look good when they're winning. And they've been winning like 3/4 of the season so far. This team is totally built to take an early lead and cruise. And so far, well, they haven't really cruised, but they've had leads. Jeff says, don't want to question the coaching, but think Ayuk and Sermon are better than they are being talked about. That Sermon run was nice until he was hit. That's how I feel too. I mean, I understand that maybe they're not living up to expectations and you're trying to bring the best out of them, but at the same time, like, don't hurt your team.
No,
Don't just
no.
score 17 and lose. Like, I'm glad that they gave up 11.
Can you
But wow,
can you go back to that? Because the
sure,
Ayuk part of it is what's so important. Ayuk is a lot better than he's getting talked about right now. This is the
yeah.
same Brandon Ayuk that when Blake and I did our rookie receiver rankings halfway through last season, and I had CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson in front of him. 49ers fans, Ayuk is better. Ayuk is better than both. Ayuk is better than this. Ayuk is better than that.
And then
And
one
now they're
comment from
willing to
Kyle
tell
Shanahan
me
and a
that Trent
couple,
Sherfield.
yeah, one comment from Kyle Shanahan and a couple quiet games, and Niner fans are like, well, he's not that good.
Or Trent
He's
Sherfield.
never
Trent
that good.
Sherfield. He's hurt. He's going to get back into
Yeah,
it. Like,
like
to act like, look, I'm not saying he's in the doghouse. I'm not saying there's this. I'm not
whatever
saying
that
he's
means.
this. I'm not saying he's that. But he's a hell of a football player. We got to see that last year. To me, there's no way you can't tell me there's more to this situation than they're leading on, because there's no way Trent Sherfield, as good as he's played, as good as he's looked the last 2 weeks and all of that, should be getting equal or close to or sharing snaps in any capacity. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel should be like A.J. Brown and Julio Jones for Tennessee.
I don't
They
know what you're
step on
talking
the field
about, man. Teams are 100% transparent all the time. I don't know what you mean. Sorry. If they said, then that's what it is. Jonathan says, maybe I'm reaching. Maybe the Ayuk situation is tied with Lance Banks Sermon not playing. Something is off with the Ayuk situation.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I'll see what I can find out. I'm gonna use my Carmen Sandiego skills. Tori says, Grant, before the season started, you had the offensive line as the worst part of the team. Are you ready to go back on that? Vish, you're a genius. No, definitely not ready to go back on that. They faced no pass rush week 1, and Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo beat the pass rush with a quick passing game and a run first attack. Let's see what happens if they fall behind. I mean, you saw what happened to Michael Lynch against Josh Sweat. Don't act like that's not waiting for them if the Niners find themselves down 10 against a good pass rush. I'm just saying. Parrish Film says, what's your thoughts on our offensive line? I think the addition of Alex Mack has been tremendous. Yeah, it's really good. He's definitely better than what they had last year, but they, definitely didn't run the ball well yesterday. I'm just saying.
The one thing I'll say is there's been less assignment busts.
Yes.
We last year we saw a lot of busted assignments between
guys going different directions.
between Brunskill. Yeah, just guys missing the
Have you guys also noticed how jittery the Niners get when clutch time hits, like those fumbles? What's your theory on this? Yeah, it's strange.
You think so?
Kittle fumbled in the fourth quarter, week 1. Hasty fumbled in the fourth quarter, week 2. Usually a veteran team with championship pedigree, even if it's a conference championship, is comfortable in those situations. And the other teams are making those mistakes. I have noticed it. I haven't drawn any conclusions.
Really, I actually think the opposite. I think the last 2 years especially, they've shown that they're a quite clutch football team. They win a lot of close games that they pull out with just effort and just clutch plays from a variety of different people. The first part of Kyle Shanahan's tenure here, you could say they weren't clutch because they would play
Max
games
is right here.
so
I mean, I have
well.
noticed what he's saying. I mean, I don't understand how they didn't get that onside kick against the Lions. I mean, they can say it was just a bad bounce or whatever, but I see where Max is saying. I just don't.
No, I
don't have a theory, Max. I wish I did. I just don't have a theory.
I'm just saying I'm not ready to write it off
as a total pattern
games because we've seen a pattern of.
Can you do a show with Vish and Pops? Yeah, I think that maybe one day we'll have to do like an All-Stars edition where you get special crossover. I think that'd be kind of cool. Absolutely. Bono says Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson have thrown a combined 10 interceptions over the first 2 weeks. Mac Jones' completion percentage of 73. Do you think we took the best quarterback with 3rd overall pick? I'm not going to judge these guys after 2 games. I think Lawrence and Wilson are on bad teams, and it's showing. I think Jones is on a good team, and it's showing. I would just think that Lance would have success, too, on a good team, but maybe he's really struggling in practice. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Lawrence and Wilson, those 2 teams suck. They picked 1 and 2 for a reason. I thought they got better. They're terrible. I've watched both of those teams. They're terrible. And Jones has played good. Jones has played really well. But, I mean, it's 3 games into his career.
It's got to make the Jets feel a little weird watching Darnold put together a couple good performances. Like, maybe we're the problem. Oh, maybe
he's playing.
Us.
Darnold is Jimmy Gimme's South in Carolina.
Hey, I'm just saying. Maybe they're the problem. Maybe Jets, no one's going to work out for them.
Darnold, first of all, Darnold is not that bad. I was lower on Darnold. He's not that bad. He is definitely a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he's proving that. Yeah. The Jets definitely are a problem. I agree with that. There's no doubt about it.
I'm just saying, like, they might have to look in the mirror right now. Yeah.
I do want to say that I think if Christian McCaffrey was healthy last year, Teddy Bridgewater would still be the starter there.
Good point. Good point. Andre Rico 85 says, if I'm correct, Jimmy hasn't thrown a pick yet, even though he's thrown a few would-be picks. Does this mean this will catch up with him and he ends up throwing 5 picks in a single game or something? I don't know, man. Maybe the fact that his job is on the line means he's finally taking it a little bit more seriously and taking control. Because my issue with Jimmy is that he's just a little too lackadaisical overall. Like, take it a little more seriously, protect the football, even if you're not going to be an all-time great. And I feel like this year he's acting that way. Like, he cares. Like, he really cares. Like, this means everything to him.
Look,
Is what
we're
I'm saying.
2 games in, but I
Yeah.
think it does look different this year.
Yeah.
I do think it looks different because usually in games, even he doesn't throw picks, there's a few more interceptable passes. I mean, there was one really the high throw to Ayuk may be possible, but we see throws like that in every game. The throw to Steven Nelson's the only one where he's thrown basically a would-be pick so far this season. So I do think he's made progress in the right direction, honestly. But we're 2 games in. Who knows? Maybe Jay Rico's right. He throws 5 next game.
It could happen, man. It really could.
Yeah.
Ominous 24 says, are we really expected to lose our minds over 11 carries for 20 yards? Is that how low our expectations should be? Offense in a box, Jimmy Way 2.0. Well, let's come back to Jimmy real quick. I think what's happening is if he doesn't have, if he faces a team with no pass rush, he can drop back, do play action, and rip 15-yard throws over the middle and look good. If he does face a team with the pass rush, Kyle's not going to really call very many throws down the field. So, I mean, in this game against the Eagles, he was 3 of 7 with 2 drop picks beyond 10 yards. The more they call downfield throws against a team with a good defense, the more they're going to ask Jimmy to do that. So I think what we're doing right now is basically setting him up for success, which is good. You know, don't throw the pick. Dylan says, how do you think the rest of the division played? Well, the Seahawks lost.
Yeah, I thought the Seahawks blowing that game was funny. They should not have blown that game. They looked good all the way up till they blew that game. Arizona, Kyler Murray looks unbelievable. Kyler Murray looks great. And then the Rams, I know I saw Ramilia Sports in here. He's been giving you a couple dollars to say something about Stafford this entire offseason. I don't want to say I told you so, but 2 games in, I'm sitting back, popcorn's tasting real good, watching Matthew Stafford doing the things I told you he would do. I told you he would do those things. He could do those things on the 49ers. I mean, it just looks different. It looks unstoppable with the Rams. Like the Goff offense, you felt like if you game planned for that defense, you can get on that bootleg. You can get on that run game.
Kind of like
How are you going to stop him throwing 18-yard in cuts under pressure to Cooper Kupp on a rope? How are you stopping that?
You can't. Lucky Louise says, you don't think Kyle's saving Trey like a secret weapon and not have any teams get film on him, then unleash him in his playbook in close games? That seems to be how he thinks. And if he could say, because he likes to predict the future, and I could see him saying, I don't need him week 1 to week 2. I'll win without him. And it'll be this, I'll unleash him when I most need him. And the element of surprise will help you win the game. Maybe he's right. I would just say these games were a little bit closer than they needed to be. That's all I'm saying. But I think,
Grant,
yeah,
I actually disagree with that. Like
okay.
Maybe a year and a half ago, if you talked to me, I would tell you that I believe something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I've learned about football over the last year from people like you and a bunch of people I've gotten the opportunity to talk to and learn from is that the NFL, there's no guarantee that you can win a week in the NFL against a team just because on paper your roster is better. I think it's way too hard to win week to week. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan is so good, or anybody in the NFL for that reason is so good, where they can just look at a game this week and be like, I don't need half my offense. I just need to show this and we'll go win it like that. It's way too hard to win in the NFL. There's so many things like going into Lincoln Financial and winning in Philadelphia is tough in it of itself.
The only other conclusion is that Kyle is a little challenged when it comes to assessing which players really give him his best chance to win. That's my only other thing I can say then. He's got a perception issue at that point. Like, you can't help you at this point. I'm sorry. You lost me. That's all I'm saying. So if he doesn't, if that's the logic, then it's a perception issue, no question. 7NP says, can you and Vish do a PSA letting Niner fans know that Frank Gore ain't coming through that door? I love Gore, but stop.
I love him too. He's not coming. He's not a fit for this offense.
He's a boxer now.
Oh,
would you let him get into boxing, please? Yeah, he's a boxer.
Please don't let him fight Jake Paul.
Oh, Art Martinez. Yeah, that would be. Wouldn't it be great if Frank Gore put an end of all that foolishness? Art Martinez says, do you think if we have another bad season, Kyle gets fired? What do you think of guys? Oh my God, don't say Jason Garrett. No. It would explain Kyle being a little stubborn about not playing Lance if he felt that he were on the hot seat. Like if he felt like, look, let me clinch a playoff spot before we get to Trey Lance. I could see that. I mean, it's not my job, and I'm not sure that I'm not saying Jets told him anything, but you don't really have to say anything when you're a head coach and it's year 5 and you've had one winning season. I think everyone kind of knows where you stand. So maybe he feels like, look, it's not your job. I know I've gotten extensions, but these billionaire owners turn on coaches in a minute. Let me just secure my future before we secure Lance's future.
I'll say something regarding this exact topic that I mean I'm not objective when it comes to Kyle Shanahan. I love Kyle Shanahan, but this is what Blake said to me. He said that I understand how good of an offensive game planner he is, but at some point, if he has another losing season this year, I'm going to turn on him. And I asked him why, and he said we've seen so many bad coaches have better results than Kyle and still get more criticism and get fired. At some point, you are what your record says.
Right.
And if he has one winning seasons in 6 seasons, and I'm going to be the person that goes, nope, injuries in Brian Hoyer, 2017. So throughout 2017, 2018, Jimmy Garoppolo injury throughout 2018, 2020 injuries throughout 2020, 2021 Trey Lance development throughout 2020. That'll be me. But at some point, you do have to evaluate him based on his results, and his results just wouldn't be up to par of the potential and talent.
And he knows that. He knows that. He understands that while there's a lot of people that worship him to an extent and see everything from his perspective, that maybe Jed York, you don't know where Jed York is going to stand, especially if things go real sideways this year. Jeremy, man, what's up? Says Jalen Hurts starting a running back until Mitchell's ready. I think that's probably the way to go. Jalen Hurts, why don't you just put Trey Lance at running back and get it over with? How about that?
Do you think we get to a point where Deebo Samuel has to lead this team in carries and receptions?
Probably. He's supposed to be the whole offense. Just every play is give the ball to Deebo. Break. Jonathan says, notice how the only passes Ayuk got were errant throws. When he caught one, Jimmy laughed his butt off. Yeah, I don't get it. I didn't see that. But, there are some super sleuths on the case. Yeah, that every time Ayuk gets the ball, it's 8 yards over his head, and they're like, hey, why don't you catch it? Why don't you jump higher? That ball he caught, it was like with the fingertips. Scott says, biggest surprise for me this season is how much improved the O-line seems with Alex Mack at the helm at center. No sacks through 2 games is great progress. Okay. It is. Let's see what happens.
How to block Chandler Jones and company.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Watt.
Apex Shaver says, Vish, I got to say, you're like a young sports phenom to me. Young man with a long, excellent career ahead of him. Great work.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
It's just a side hustle for him. He does this in his spare time. He does 8 other things, probably even better. That's Vish in a nutshell. Gammon says, we are undefeated when Jimmy rushes 10 plus times a game. Feed Jimmy. Canton, RB1. That's true. These are just facts. Rams v Tampa this week.
I'm excited to see this game.
Who you got?
I think I'm going to take the Rams. I think the Rams are the one team, and here's why. I thought Dallas exposed a little bit on what 3 receiver sets and running just a straight drop back pass game can do to Tampa's defense, especially when you're running a quick pass game with RPOs. The Rams have the personnel to be able to do that. They're not going to run the ball against, and they don't have to run the ball, because running the ball against Tampa when Vita Vea is playing is suicide. You're not going to be able to run the ball for more than 40 yards. It's impossible. And so I think they're going to be able to pass it. And then their defense, I think, is going to give that Bucs offense a little bit of trouble.
Okay. King Voss says self-sabotage Sandy is extra crispy this early season. King Voss, God love you, man. I love you. Yeah, self-sabotage Sandy. I definitely see that. Mark says Ayuk made a crazy catch and we never saw him again. Dude, and he's platooning at punt return with Mohamed Sanu. You notice that? They split off. They take turns. Kyle.
If you notice, Ayuk takes the punt returns that are 20 and above, and anything that they're punting that you think the punt's going to land inside the 20, Mosanu is the one who returns it.
That's 4D chess right there. I just want to say.
But they used to. I
like Ayuk's 12-yard return. It came back though. It got called back though. 12-yard return.
Yeah,
what?
He was. They used to do the same thing. Trent Taylor used to do Mosanu's role, and Richie James used to do Ayuk's role.
Yeah, that's a good point. Trade Jimmy and Kittle to Atlanta for Kyle Pitts. I would do that. Did I say that loud? Don says Kyle with major personnel perception issues. Coleman over other backs. Mitchell yesterday in a game he gets lost, distorted with personnel choices. Yeah, and my only thing to Kyle is like, you don't have to be right. Like, let it play out. Watch. Rotate, watch, and then assess the evidence. Kyle's so caught up in, well, it's Mitchell. He's the only guy I can trust, and I'm right.
No.
stop.
Also, I do want to mention one more person, Grant. Your favorite player, has he played the last 2 weeks? When is my guy
Don't even
Ross
get
Dwelly
me
getting a
started,
look?
man. If they lost a game without getting Ross Dwelly involved, I would flip out. I would lose it. But they haven't lost yet, so I'm saving that. But don't think I haven't noticed. MD says, who's done a better job at coaching, Harbaugh era or Shanahan era? I mean, you can't compare Shanahan to 3 straight NFC Championship games.
Mm-hmm.
You could get there, but you can't compare that. I
Right,
mean,
and then but
taking a 6-10
go
team
ahead, my
and
bad.
making it 13-3 right away, you never see coaches do that anymore. That was nice.
Yeah,
If
what
they
he
did
did
that.
was exceptional. And then you also can't compare Harbaugh because Harbaugh took over a team that had the worst coach in the NFL in Singletary, but they had so much talent across the board. Shanahan had to take over a team that sucked, and he had to build talent. So it's like
True, it's different.
incomparable. They both did a good job coaching in their own ways. And no, I'm not saying Trent can't block Chandler Jones. Trent probably can, but can Mike McGlinchey and Daniel Brunskill and co block JJ Watt? Because JJ Watt has been unbelievable at the beginning of this season. Everybody cuckooed that side. Oh, JJ Watt can't play anymore. 3-time defensive player. He can't play. He sucks. Blah, blah, blah. He's been fantastic so far this season.
All right. We're almost done with our show, and we've touched on this earlier. I just want to bring it up one final time at the end because I feel like a lot of Niner fans are really celebrating a 2-0 start, which is like you should, right? You're a football fan, your team's 2-0, that's great. It's just that I think everyone expected them to win these 2 games, at least I did. And in particular this last game, there was a significant amount of luck involved, if we're being honest. And I think it's fair to just point that out before we end the show. Like, celebrate this win, but understand that it's largely because Jalen Rieger's the outside of his right foot, the outside of his 2 feet, clipped the boundary on a touchdown. Jaquiski Tartt took the perfect angle and had the speed to run across the field and drag down Kes Watkins. I didn't see that coming. And Javon Kinlaw is 6'5" and can jump 30-something inches in the air. I mean, that's not luck, but those were all like game of inches type of stuff.
So, you bring these up to talk about luck. I actually want to take it a different direction. To me, all of those things you described are the reasons wins aren't a quarterback stat. For whatever reason, we attribute this winning to Garoppolo, and we always put up his record. But yesterday, Garoppolo had a poor first half, right? And that's where we talk about, Garoppolo had nothing to do with Jalen Reagor stepping out of bounds. Garoppolo had nothing to do with Jaquiski Tartt running down Quez Watkins. Garoppolo has nothing to do with that defense's goal line stand. K'Wan Williams on 4th down, reading Philly special, taking away the quarterback option, forcing Greg Ward to throw the ball into the back of the end zone. Fred Warner's tackle on 2nd and goal. Jimmy Ward running down Jalen Hurts on 3rd and goal. Jimmy Garoppolo has nothing to do with any of those 3 plays. Garoppolo
has nothing to do with Nick Sirianni calling the worst Philly special ever on 4th and goal from the 2.
And so these are the things where I look at it and say, okay, you're going to say wins are a quarterback stat, but there's he has nothing to do with Javon Kinlaw blocking that field goal. And we give all of these factors and we say, he wins. But there's so many things that happen in a football game that cause the Niners to win. Oh, that's funny. That have nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know why, for whatever reason, we have made wins a quarterback stat. I think there's a lot of games where quarterbacks play bad and they still win, and we don't go parading their record. I brought up Mitch Trubisky the other day, bringing up or yesterday, and my tweet ran. I mean, you can go through it. It's not. I would not recommend it. My Twitter notifications are an absolute cesspool.
I really feel that Jared Goff. The problem with Jared Goff is he forgot how to win. He used to know, and then he forgot. It slipped his mind. Also, Mitchell Trubisky slipped his mind.
So, no, because here's why Mitchell Trubisky. Somebody asked me, they said, what team gets mad at a quarterback when he's 2-0? I said Bears fans were very angry at Mitchell Trubisky, who started what last year, Grant?
What?
2-0.
2-0.
They said, no. Mitchell Trubisky has never achieved anything Garoppolo had. Mitchell Trubisky had a 12-4 season in Chicago. He made a Pro Bowl in Chicago. And you know what else Mitchell Trubisky did? He was a Cody Parkey double doink field goal away from winning a playoff game. Garoppolo, he's better because Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman had a real good run game against the Vikings, and Nick Bosa sacked Kirk Cousins 3 times. And then he threw the ball 8 times, which Trubisky couldn't have made those 8 times. The point is, I'm not comparing Garoppolo and Trubisky. Garoppolo is better than Trubisky, right? But attributing wins to a quarterback when there's so many things that happen in a football game that have nothing to do with the quarterback, and then saying the quarterback's the reason the team won, it's garbage to me. It's BS. I mean, you look at all the things Justin Herbert did last year as a rookie, and the Chargers still lost, or those losses on Justin Herbert. He played about as good as you can play. You look at some of the games in 2019, especially early, and you look at how poorly Garoppolo played, and still the Niners won, and they
I
won
heard
by
that Jimmy
hand.
Garoppolo was actually on the sideline talking to Diamador Lenore before that throw to Rieger and told him squeeze him, push him out. I heard
That's the
that was
Tom Brady effect. That's the
yeah,
Tom
that
Brady.
was his leadership and his coaching. You can't quantify that.
You know that's what Tom does. You know, Tom Brady this season
He
he
tells
told
the
Eric
defense
Fisher
to play better.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah.
He motivates
It's
them.
the Tom Brady effect. Yeah,
He walks up and down the sideline and says, "Guys, play better," and they do.
He's the reason Malcolm Butler intercepted that pass at
There's
the
no question.
half-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually say that Tom Brady intercepted that more or less. Jason says, "You guys, what?"
This is the BS that we have to go through. If there's one thing I can make an impact in anything in life, I would like to make football a universal conversation where society finally accepts that we need to stop attributing wins as a quarterback stat and rating quarterbacks by the record. Because this year, when Matthew Stafford goes 12-5 and everybody says he's a good quarterback, I'll say, "Oh, little old me was saying he was a really, really good quarterback in Detroit when he was going 8-65 against winning teams."
Also, if Jimmy Garoppolo is starting right now because he wins, let's just remind everyone that Trey Lance never lost a game in college. So if we're basing this on QB wins, he's got a great argument to start. Jason says you guys are forgetting one thing. It's a lot harder to win on the road. You think when you go home, you're going to see their offense better. Okay, I feel that. Let's see him execute at home. They're going up against what do you think of this real quick? Green Bay's defense? Is it anything?
We'll see tonight.
Good point. Last
we'll
one.
see how they do against the Detroit run game.
The Niners. True.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn's a good run game coordinator. We'll see how they do against that.
That's true. Keneal says, and also Jared Goff, he knows how to win. Well, he used to. Keneal says, do we really need to wait to see Jimmy crash and burn before Trey can start? Waiting until we lose a game, a big game because of him is frustrating. I mean, that's what I've been saying. But the Niners are all in with this approach. Yes, that's what's going to have to happen, I would think. Yes. Unless Kyle is going to ready to make the switch at the last freaking minute in the game.
Let me say this though, there might be a point where, and the person who always talked about this is Chris Sims when they drafted Trey Lance, and he said one of the reasons Trey Lance makes him nervous is because Jimmy Garoppolo is beloved in that locker room. What happens if they start 8-0? Even if he has a bad game to move them to 8-1, he has an 8-game sample size where you started 8-0. You can't move to Trey Lance and give up on him after one loss or one bad game. Or one bad game that forces them to lose. There might be other bad games along the way. And so I think that's the big quandary. I don't think they have a plan. I think they're just letting it ride and seeing where the chips fall. And we'll see how it turns out.
I'd be really disappointed if I were Trey Lance and his agent. It's too bad. But anyway, 7NP says the wins are nice, but not playing good at the start of the game or almost choking it at the end will get Niners killed when those division games come up. Yeah, that's what we're saying. But again, we don't have to get too negative. I appreciate you, but I totally agree. But they're 2-0. Good teams find ways to win. The Niners are a good team. How good is the question? They think they're as good as any team in the league. I have questions, but you know what? It's still only mid-September. This isn't the final version of this team.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Las Vegas is 2-0 right now. Derek Carr might be the MVP in football after 2 games.
That's true. That's true. Some bold takes on September 20th over here. Anyway,
but the point, my point more or less with that is to say that there's a lot of football to be played.
Yeah, pump the brakes on that. The Niners haven't proven anything. And look, I think when this schedule came out, we all looked at it and said they're gonna start 2-0, or they better, because the tougher stretch is pretty much weeks 3 to 9. I mean, it's coming up. It gets easier later. But right now, I think they've taken care of business. They've held serve. They've done what they need to do. Good. It only gets harder moving forward. I think they need to expand what they're doing on offense. And the cool thing about this team is they can. It's not that they're undermanned on offense. They're just keeping people on the bench for odd reasons. So with the help of you and me, and if we band together, you and I can prevent forest fires. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great show. Vish, I owe you $25. So I'm going to see you in Chicago. I'm going to get you a Hennessy on the. I'm going to get you a Mai Tai, an original Mai Tai. You're going to love it. But you can't give Vish too many drinks, though, because Vish, he's still only 21. I didn't have a tolerance when I was 21. Just saying.
But also, just
I have it now.
A side note, I will also, and people were asking, I will be actually going to Santa Clara for a game this year. It's the Cardinals game on November 7th, I think. I will be there for that game. The Bears game right now, I think even though I have a ticket, I think I might have a conflict. I'll come hang out. I'm doing the John Chapman hangout or whatever before, but I might not be at the game that Sunday, but the game versus the Cardinals, I'm excited to see Kyler Murray in person.
I just want to say that this is 100% incorrect. The original Mai Tai, the ones that you get at Trader Vic's that are not like with a bunch of pineapple juice, they're delicious. I just want to say that. Real Oakland OGs know about Trader Vic's. They used to have them all over the world, but they're now just in Emeryville and somewhere else. Anyway, next time you're out here, I'll take you to Trader Vic's and get you a Mai Tai. It'll change your life.
I prefer Trader Joe's for my groceries, but
they're not necessarily related, but they should be. They're both traders. Really? They both had their own. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow with my pops and Jackhammer. So see you guys.